But anyway, that's just an aside. And what was wonderful is that, they were very cheap tickets. 12 anna, it was 12 annas was the ticket. And it was a wonderful experience. I mean, just to sit in the Zanana and watch a film. Though you never knew, because always there would be women who would come with huge tiffin carriers, babies. It was like a 4 hour, 3.5 hour picnic. So just to share that, I think the film was wonderful because at least for me it brought back all those memories of, cinephilia and single screen delight, watching films like that. But to get to, maybe just share how did you come to this idea, this project, and how did it start for you?
It started in a sort of cliched way because I have a friend who's an architectural historian, Mary Woods, with whom I did a lot of the research, and she and I are co-producers in the film. And we had, she was very interested in single screens and art deco and, architecture and stuff like that. So we just started randomly, one of those things where you were just researching and you had no idea where it was going to go, if it was going to go at all, except that there was this sense of fragility, that some of these theatres you wouldn't get a chance to film, or people that you could talk to who you may not get a chance to speak to later. And things that were changing. So, for instance, so we started in South Bombay actually with Liberty and with Capitol, and of course visiting a lot more theatres, Eros, Regal, New Empire, lots of things, and it was just that sense of that this is time sensitive, so one should document it. That's actually how we began, and but as if the body of it started growing, and as we started going from theatres in South Bombay to more central Bombay, and actually where we finally saw, theatres that were running houseful on Bhojpuri cinemas, and then, stuff like that, you started thinking more about what does this mean? Like, what does it mean for certain theatres to be running empty, certain theatres to be managing to survive, and actually started thinking about the relationship between the audience and the theatres. And I think that's when it actually became an idea for a film. So earlier it was really just documentation and research, and she was going to write about it. And I was like, let's film it, we'll see what happens as we go along. Let's just do some nice interviews. And, we'll think along the way. And in fact, this film has been a very long time in the making. I think it's 10 years by the time it got done. Because the money was coming in small little tranches. So we would do a little bit and then we'd take a break, get on with life, come back, go back to this kind of thing. So our thinking also got breaks, and then we were able to, because I was like, look, I am more interested in what is that relationship between audiences and how do we experience it, because we often talk of theatres from the point of view of being an audience member, right? And that is where the excitement is. It's not always about, the academic part or the ethic part about the theatre, etc. is part of it. But a lot more is about what you felt like inside. And as we started talking to different audiences, we were getting different textures of stories. And for me, then that started evolving into.
No, definitely, I think the film, the pleasure principle of cinema and watching in a communal space with people, I think that came out brilliantly, I thought.
Thank you.
And also, I was very impressed with all the historical archive footage, and you have, for example, those photographs of British troops.
Yeah.
And so much of your archive footage. So, could you share a little bit? I don't know, are people interested in that? For example, what was that search like, and locating this material? I think it's
so exciting. It was so exciting, because, and for me, actually, sometimes I feel like, there is the thing of actually going to theatres and getting them to look through their pamphlets and their brochures and their old photographs and pulling them out, and that's one kind of thrill. And then the other one is to actually go to someone like Javeed's house and get them to start talking about each other and their equations through that, because that's their family archive. And in as much as Nazir's is about getting the land and the land and the land inauguration ceremony and the curtain raising and all of that stuff of Liberty Theatre, But actually, the troops, I actually, it's lovely that you pointed out because I found them in some defense archive actually
Wow.
online,
Mm.
and wrote to someone who is actually in England and wrote to the family saying, "Look, I've traced these pictures, and can I possibly use them?" So, I mean, one I think was from Alamy, but the rest of them are actually somebody's archive who was posted in Nasik and had posted it online. And I connected with a family member and actually got it. So, because in a way the research is all over the place because you're in different cities, you're in different time zones. It's like there's no limit. You are actually you're looking in many, many directions at the same time. So, but sometimes you hit upon something like that that's so exciting because otherwise, how do you bring alive that idea that, this is Second World War? So, you're talking about a very, very different kind of time. So, and then there is, of course, you're talking about Delhi around partition and around independence, and, something like my aunt doing her recollection of the fact that school children were celebrating the formation of a new country by being taken to the movies.
Mm.
So it
That's
was,
good.
yeah, so.
That's the historian in you. That's great. I just wanted to point out for Bangalore audiences, if you remember Plaza Cinema, and do you remember that there was the cinema and then there was a wooden dance hall adjacent to the cinema. And though the dance hall sadly was no more in use, but there used to be dances and there and the cinema together. So, I mean, so this idea of building cinemas for British people, I mean, I think because it was Bangalore, that was the cantonment part of our city. So I remember that clearly.
But that's true in Mayfair. There's so much history that you can't bring into a film.
Mm.
But like Mayfair Theatre, where I'm talking about the thing of Santa Claus and being able to eat in the dark, whatever someone passes you, there's no fear of you being poisoned and X Y Z when you were growing up in the 70s. It actually started out as a dance hall, also. Because that whole idea that, and there were dancers, besides the performances, it was actually partly, it was the glam center. It was like the red carpet zone,
Right.
right?
People dressed up to go to films.
Of
You
course.
dressed up, you just didn't walk into a special thing.
Like we do now.
Or you watch on your laptop. It's just so sad. Yeah, so that was one thing. Then, I was also thinking that, you bring that out a little bit in film, but when you're talking about audiences and their particular attachment to certain theaters, people
Yeah.
have an attachment to certain theaters.
Yeah.
And in that, you have also, once a show is over and the audience comes out, and there's always this chat, between people who are waiting to go in and the ones who are coming out, and there are these
Yeah.
things exchanged, these conversations, "K picture, how was it, and what did you think," and that back and forthy thing. And that's another thing I remember is that it's not just that you see a film, but there's all this around it as well. How you've observed it. There's also
So, one of the ways
Yeah.
I tried to bring that in, and I don't know whether it came across, but for me, I did something that I don't normally do, which is that there is some of my characters, you meet them, you get to know a little backstory, you hear their stories in particular, etc. And some of them are just like voice characters, they're just voices. And for me, that was the reflection of how do because it's like how you hear somebody's comment in a theater,
Right.
you're
Yeah.
walking down the stairs. So I wanted to capture that. So I had a ridiculous number of 17 characters in the
Yeah.
film. But I was like, that's what the theater is like.
Yes.
You don't know everybody. You don't get to know everybody. So it seems unreal to make a film where I get to know every character who's talking about theaters.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is you hear it when you're in the parking lot, when you're walking in, when you go to the loo to pee,
Mhm.
So that sense of fragments of memories, or fragments of commentary on theaters and the experiences. I thought one way to capture that would be to bring in characters who just come and go, who you never know anything more about, but you hear something that maybe stays with you.
I think it worked. I think that worked very well. We got that feeling for sure. The other thing is also like, you know, again, I want to, because we are here in Bangalore and there are people here also, that, you know, the tragedy of losing single screen theatres. I think that also is very poignant, you know, that's gone. I mean, you know, Plaza is gone, Rex has become a mall. I mean, on Kempegowda Road, we had 86 cinemas on one road, you can imagine. And, you know, and the day when there used to be first day, first show, the hoardings, and of course South India, you know, the size of the hoardings, the size of the posters, it was, you know, the pujas that would be done, the new Rajkumar film, the excitement of all of that, no? It was almost like a festival kind of feeling, you know, and definitely Kempegowda Road had that, you can imagine that, and each theatre was also architecturally, which you've shown very beautifully actually in the film. I like that a lot. Like they were like palaces. I mean, they were not ordinary places. They were like palaces, and they were built like that, right? So, and what is beautiful, like in Liberty and all that, is that they are. It's perfect Art Deco, and they've kept it like that.
It's exquisite.
Beautiful, you know. It's just so beautiful, the architecture. But and the other thing I wanted to talk about, which some of us may share, I don't know, is this thing of seeing a film more than once. You know, you get addicted, and you don't maybe not see the whole film, but there are certain parts you want to see again and again. And for example, DDLJ, that ran for how many years? In
32
how many
years.
Huh? 32 years or something it was running. So even that experience, that, you know, you go and yeah, so is there anything, I don't want to ask you questions, is there anything else you'd like to share? I mean, I'm just, or do people want to ask something? Please.
Yeah, I think
go
let's
ahead.
wait for if someone has a
At the back.
question or
One
a
second.
comment.
Right at the back. Do you want to come? You can come here.
No.
Hello. Yeah.
Hi.
Yes, that was gorgeous. Oh, I'm sorry. So something which it's this is more of an aesthetic question than anything else. Something I couldn't help noticing while watching the film, or rather listening to the film, was that it had like a very lovely linguistic texture to it, in that like everybody who was speaking, almost everybody had their own distinct way of speaking. Like some people were speaking like pretty fluent English. Some of them, their English had to be like subtitled and like altered a bit so to make it fully comprehensible. Some of them were speaking Hindi, some were speaking like very strongly accented Hindi, and I thought that was really lovely. So like, did that kind of social linguistic diversity, I guess, did that just come out by like, did it come out organically, or was it like a product of like conscious design?
I think, no, it was not by conscious design, but I think it's very challenging to make a film on some ubiquitous subjects. Like schools, or like every screening I have at least 2 people complaining to me saying, but you didn't do my city. Calcutta has the best history. Hyderabad has the best history. Everybody. So I was really struggling with what is that combination of cities that I actually, also practically can do, right? And because we were doing this thing of looking at how cinema follows people. So, if the troops are coming to India, English films follow, right? If if working class people are coming from Eastern UP and Bihar into Bombay, into a metropolitan like Bombay, therefore then Bhojpuri cinemas follow and become a thing. And then I started looking at where is Hindi cinema, what happens when it travels to the south, for instance. Basically I was looking at a non-Hindi speaking language center, and I landed in this Calicut story. Okay, so because it has a long history of showing Hindi films. Some of the archival pictures you'll see are like Mughal-e-Azam, etc., and Sahab Bibi aur Ghulam and stuff like that. So because I think of that geographical diversity itself, you got a certain kind of linguistic spread, I would say, And including someone like Vinod, who starts off saying that, people say I don't have much of an accent. I have a neutral accent. But he says a neutral accent like a good Malayali almost. So I think it's something that happens when you have a certain kind of range or whatever, then people bring their own kind of diversity, linguistic, experiential, lived, whatever, into the film. And then it gets enriched in that way.
Deepa, I have a question and a suggestion. My question is simple. Where do we go from here? It is a wonderful 1 hour we spent now. Wonderful. My suggestion is, if Deepa and Kuti join together, we can make a new movie. The title of the movie is, do we in India have a democracy or demonocracy? Please make a movie on demonocracy of India for the future.
No, I.
We can take maybe one last question.
Please,
Over there,
please.
No question.
Go ahead.
on the left.
Maya.
Hello, Vani. Maya here. Very wonderful.
Oh,
very, hi. Very enjoyable. I have a question. You want to stand up? Oh, God. Okay. Very enjoyable. Just like you talked about people from Gorakhpur going to Bombay, and so then the Bhojpuri film follows. I've held a question in my mind for 65 years now, I think. There would be the 10 a.m. In my child's mind, it was a sexy film.
Yeah.
And it was a Malayalam film. Usually came at 10 a.m. to Rivoli Cinema in Delhi. And very clearly, I know that my mother will not take me to see that film. And I used to wonder, and I wondered for years, why is this Her Nights, His Dreams, Avalude Ratrigal, why is it happening at 10 a.m. in the morning? Now, so this is a very, very pertinent audience screening question. Have you found an answer to this? Because it happened Sunday after Sunday. And I wanted to get in there, and there was no chance in hell of getting in there.
Well, I share that both that curiosity, fear, trauma, anticipation, everything with you. Because I tried getting, male friends to go with, and everyone was like, Papa, sorry, you can't do this. I mean, we're not going there. But honestly, I didn't fathom that myself, because I think that, I think it was meant to be like, I don't know how 10 o'clock in the morning is a private time for men to actually be out. But because for me, contrarily, 10 o'clock in the morning or whatever was our children's film time on a Sunday in Lucknow. And later on television, once Doordarshan came in, and some children's entertainment came in, that used to happen in the mornings. So I don't know, Maya. I don't know, about that. And that is something that by the time we've come to this time, so actually a theatre like Palace, where Javeed and Fareed and all go, and where Farooq is a manager, there was an interim period before they came to the Bhojpuri formula, where in order to survive, they actually ran soft porn or whatever through the day, okay? For working class, largely men around that area. But when it comes to an interview, they won't talk about it. So this is the other thing. So that's one of those things I couldn't get on film. To talk about what happened in that interim period and how did you survive before, after Hum Aapke Hain Kaun and then lull that happens before Bhojpuri cinema comes in and helps them sustain themselves. So it's something that I actually don't have an answer to.
You want to?
We'll take one last question, and yeah.
No. Hi, ma'am. It was a really amazing film. I cannot tell you the array of emotions it invoked in me. So I'm obviously from Gen Z, and I've always watched films on TV and my tablet, and most recently like my phones and everything. Because we did not have cinema at our place, because I belong to a place where the radical Islamicization stopped cinema. So I think in recent years, we've reversed it. So cinemas were converted into, I think, hospitals and more useful things, which they call them. Now I think there are one or two cinema halls that have been constructed, and some people go there. Many people are still stigmatized, and yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to say that I think my place is going back to the cinema ages now in this age. My question is that I made a documentary film, but it was a short film about a ubiquitous subject that you said it is actually tough. I've made a film on bakers. So in my place, there's like traditional bakers, which is a ubiquitous institution.
Right.
And it was very tough to script it actually, and even tough to edit it. And it was a short film, so it was not that hard. But your feature film is actually 63 minutes long. So my question is about your scripting process and obviously the editing process. How did you do it, and obviously it must have evolved over time. But what was the larger frame like? What was the timeline like? That is my question.
Oh, the timeline was terrible. I took 10 years to finish this film, of which I think the last almost 6-8 months we edited, because there was a lot of material and it was all pulling in many different directions. So, and the other thing was that while I wanted to talk, and the focus of this discussion has largely been about single screens, I also wanted to talk about how audiences in the theatre are not divorced from audiences outside, right? And with tensions outside in society. So by the end, what you're seeing of what happens with Kashmir Files or even let's say with the national anthem story, those are happening in multiplexes, right? Of somebody getting beaten up because they don't get up, etc. So I sort of had the arc of where I knew I wanted to go, because I wanted to stay inside the theatre and look at its relationship with the outside world. So what is the context from where somebody comes, and the moment I put the theatre in the middle of the actual storytelling, I think that then we found a way to tell the story. Because otherwise, I had actually had a cut which I threw away completely, which went into Javed's home, went into the background of the family. Fascinating. But actually could never come back into the theatre. Because then it seemed, it didn't work together with the other material. So I think that that's one of the things to see is that what essentially what you're trying to talk about, right? And how do you anchor that as the central space, in this case physical space, otherwise the central core narrative, which you may weave around, go in, come out, go away to breathe, come out, but you keep coming, you tie it around that central. That central thing is holding the threads, and then it's like a web, but sometimes it pulls out, then it comes back, and that kind of dynamism, I think, is what Niharika and I were working towards, because there was a lot of material. It had been shot over a long period of time with slightly different frames of mind. So I think that was the thing. So there were a lot of, we really had to figure out how they were going to speak to each other over time, and then how they were going to speak to what was actually happening outside while we were editing the film. Yeah? So I don't know whether that helps answer your question, but yeah, it's something in that direction.
Thank you, Vani. Sorry we have to come to the end of this. And
That's
thank you so
fine.
much. And it was a wonderful film. And I think everybody here. I need to come back. Just a sec. Please clap once more so she can see you.
No, I heard them. It's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thank
everyone.
you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Mani.
Bye.
Okay, we have come to the end of the festival. Thank you so much for being present here. I will present the vote of thanks and we'll be done. As we come to the close of Framing the Future, celebrating women making cinema, I want to take a moment not just to say thank you, but to truly acknowledge the spirit of what we witnessed and shared over these past 2 days. This festival was born out of a desire to center and celebrate the voices of women who are not only telling stories, but shaping the very language of cinema itself. And what an extraordinary tapestry of voices we've encountered. Raw, nuanced, funny, fierce, intimate, revolutionary. Stories that stayed with us longer after the screen faded to black. To all the filmmakers, thank you for your courage, your vision, and your craft. Each of your works has contributed to expanding the frame, to showing us what's possible when women are not only seen but are the ones holding the camera, writing the scripts, directing the shots, and leading the conversations. To our guest speakers, panelists, and moderators, Dr. Vijayamma, Deepa Dhanraj, Arundhati Ghosh, Dr. H.S. Champavati, Padmavati Rao, Beena Paul, Umang Sabarwal, Anjali Anish, Surbhi Diwan, Sindhu S. Murthy, Chaitra Putraya, Shilpika Bordoloy, and Vani Subramanian. Thank you for the insights, the honesty, and the depth you brought to every discussion. You've helped us reflect, question, and connect with these stories in more meaningful ways. To our collaborators and supporters, National Gallery of Modern Art and Governor Women's Collective, your belief in this initiative and in the importance of amplifying women's voices in film has helped bring this vision to life. To the volunteers and organizing team, Mr. George Kuti, Chaitanya, Madhubhushan, Diana, Rati, Shakun, Abhishek, Ankit, your passion, long hours, and seamless coordination made everything feel effortless, even when we all know it wasn't. You are the quiet strength behind this celebration. And finally, to our audiences, thank you for showing up, for engaging with openness, and for celebrating these stories with your presence, your applause, and your conversations. You are the community that gives this work its heartbeat. As we close, let's remember this is not the end, but a moment of momentum. May the spirit of this festival inspire us all to create, to support, and to make space for more voices, more visions, more futures. Here's to the women who frame the future and to a future shaped by them. Thank you, and we'll see you at our next festival. Thank you so much for coming.